Welcome to Buckets, brought to you by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. This is your NBA Finals Game 2 Best Bets episode for Mavericks Celtics. After the Celtics crushed the Dallas Mavericks, going up by as many as like 29, and then it got down to 8, and then the shooting variant stopped going wonky, and then the Celtics absolutely cruised. We will break down, we'll give you best bets for this game. We'll give you lots of props. We will not give you a side. I will warn you right now, and we'll talk about why there will not be a side in this game. There is going to be a total play, and we'll give you a parlay on this game. And to do that, I've got Joe Dellera. Find him in the Action Network app and on Twitter at Joe Dellera. I've got Bryan Fonseca. He's at Bryan Fonseca NY on Twitter and in the Action Network app. Appreciate you guys being with us. Make sure that you check out youtube.com/the Action Network. Sunday, we have Action Island, a live show that's going to give out a same-game parlay, lots of props, good stuff there. Sunday night, after Game 2, we'll do Buckets Live, and we'll react live to the Game 3 spread, as well as talk the series price. Fiddle and I'll be on that. I think I've got somebody else coming for that as well, but check it out. We're going to start in the fourth quarter and live bet as that goes through that game. We'll go through that game, and we'll, like, if we're sweating stuff, we'll talk live bets. It's really fun. Check it out. Good second screen experience for you. Just go to youtube.com/the Action Network in the fourth quarter, and you can find us there, as well as after the game, reacting to as those prices come out. It was awesome in Game 1. We're going to do it again for Game 2. We will also do Buckets Live for every game of the NBA Finals, no matter how long the series goes. I will not be with you for Games 3 and 4, as I will be in Dallas at American Airlines for Games 3 and 4. Also, download the Action Network app. I'm going to have an article breaking down all sorts of matchup stuff from Game 1, so you can kind of look at some of the stuff that we'll talk about today. You'll be able to see clips and more detail on that as well. Brandon Anderson's got an article in there recapping Game 1 and kind of his thoughts on the series, which all of us on Celtics are like, see? And now we'll see if there's adjustments to be made, and we'll get into that. As we always do, we'll go around the table and we'll give our best bets for Game 2. I will go first because I never go first. I'm going to play the under 214.5 on the total in a complete reversal of my series cap on this being an over series. I have completely flipped for a number of reasons I'll get into. I'm also going to take PJ Washington over 11.5 points. That's minus 130 at BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. Joe Dellera, what are your best bets for Game 2?
I like a couple of different plays. I like Jason Tatum over 14.5 rebounds plus assists. I like Kristaps Porzingis over 3.5 first quarter points, and I like Luka Doncic under 8.5 assists.
Okay. What's the juice on Porzingis over 3.5 in first quarter?
Minus 125 now.
Okay. Bryan Fonseca, what are your best bets for Game 2?
I like PJ Washington over 1.5 threes. That's out on the market, minus 130. I like Maxi Kleber to hit a three, plus 100 out there. And I'm also with Joe on Tatum over rebounds and assists.
Okay. So, this is a best bets pod. It's not like a game recap pod, but I will just go ahead and get into a couple of things real quick here. So I like the under, and I'll use this as kind of a mechanism to talk about it. This is entirely a pace play. So in Game 1, via cleaning the glass, which counts actual possessions, the Mavericks had 84 possessions. To put that into perspective, if the Mavs have a 120 offensive rating in Game 2, which would be really good versus Boston, especially with the matchup, that would only get them to 100 points. So not only for this to go over, do you have to see the Mavericks solve a lot of matchup problems, have Boston keep up the same level of shooting performance or better, but you also have to see a dramatic change in pace. Now, that's possible that the Mavericks may be like, all year Dallas has done a better job of pushing a little bit of tempo to mix in with their watching Luka Doncic pound the air out of the basketball. Luka had a 37 usage rate in Game 1. Like, it was an abject, just dribble the air out of the ball performance. They completely leaned into what Boston wanted them to do. And there are counters to that, which again, I'll get into. But one of them very quickly is just like, hey, why don't you play with a little bit more pace so you're not necessarily going into set defense and just walking into these switches every single time. But even if they do that more, Boston is going to be effective enough in getting, because they were really good getting back in transition last night. Every time the Mavericks would try and get fast break points, it was 4 Celtics in the air contesting at the rim and closing out on shooters. Like, they were very active and good, and that should continue. So if they can't get transition points, it's going to be more of the same, and this is going to be a slow, grinded out series. I took the over in game 1 based on the idea of this being an offensively centric series based on the amount of 3-point volume. What I discounted was, and I knew this, when you get 2 teams that switch at the frequency that these teams do, the whole goddamn game turns into a swamp. And if you want proof of that, go back and watch the 2018 Western Conference Finals between the Golden State Warriors, one of the best offenses ever, and the Houston Rockets, which is another one of the best offenses ever. Those games were a slog. And the reason is, if you're switching constantly, it's very hard to beat it, because the whole thing is nobody has to send help. You're just saying, you have to beat us one-on-one. We're going to give you that, but you got to beat us one-on-one. And the efficiency necessary in those is very difficult, and it takes more time. So that's why, if you noticed last night, there's just like a lot of like Luka gets the switch and then like is trying to figure out, do I post him? Do I move around him? Like, I'll do this and then this move and then this move and then this move and then I'll shoot it. And Luka's going to score better, maybe. And Kyrie will definitely score better. But the gap that they have to make up for is huge. So, Bryan, I like under 214.5, mostly based off of the offenses can be much more efficient in game 2 on the Mavericks side, and honestly on the Boston side too, and we still cruise under if the pace maintains where it was in game 1.
You know, and what we were saying last night was Dallas, to me, slowing the game down actually works better for them than it does for Boston. Not that Boston can't produce if it slows down, but Boston is better in terms of transition defense. If Dallas is able to slow the game down, they don't have to worry about their own woeful transition defense. And Boston is a team that obviously they shoot the most threes in the NBA. What you want to do in transition offensively is get to the corners, shoot threes. And I think if Dallas is able to sort of mitigate the pace and sort of manipulate it, make it a slower game, not with Luka pounding the ball out, but make it a slower pace game so that they can actually move the ball around, because they had 9 assists. Luka had only 6 or 7 assist chances with 1 assist in the game. Like, they have to figure out how to sort of move the ball effectively, but not move the ball too quickly, if that makes a lot of sense. Like, not actually speed up the pace and have too many possessions, because you don't want to give Boston too many possessions. It's almost like in football where you want to continue to run the ball and you want to keep the other offense off, you know what I mean, on the sidelines for a while. I kind of look at it in that perspective. So for me, yeah, like, I agree. And I think the under, I mean, in the playoffs, I tend to lean under anyway, because historically that's what we're told. Like, watching 2 teams that like to shoot a lot of threes, although Dallas didn't last time around. And that's another thing that's going to be interesting to see. It's like they shot their worst 3-point attempt rate since game 1 against the Minnesota Timberwolves. They only shot 32% of their shots from 3. And they cannot survive a Boston Celtics series if they're going to just distribute their offense in that manner.
I'll say we'll talk about it. There's ways that they can get those numbers up, but it's going to be tough. Like, Dallas is very much like, no, we're not helping. No. Hey, you got Jaylen Brown. Congrats, Luka. You hit a step back 2-pointer in the post. Good job. Don't care. If you're not hitting threes, you're not keeping up with us. Bryan kind of stepped on Joe's Luka cap, so I'll let Joe give the Luka cap here, because we looked at potential assists this morning, Joe, and it was not a case of the Mavericks simply not hitting shots for Luka Doncic, and that's why his assist total was so low. In fact, those opportunities were not there.
100%. And, you know, Bryan laid out the numbers. Luka had 1 assist on 7 potentials. Those are terrible numbers for Luka. Like, you just almost never see that. But I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Boston has been essentially able to cover everybody straight up. And they're not like over helping. And one of the things that Boston does that I think like really well is they don't like try to generate turnovers. They're just like, we're just going to guard you and make life impossible. And like, they don't, as a result, like they don't really get themselves out of position. And I think that that's a coaching thing. That's also like each of these players is comfortable on an island. There's not really a single player on Boston where you're looking at them and you're saying like, all right, well, if you get like, if Lucas switches onto this guy, then, you know, they're going to be really uncomfortable. They're going to have to scramble. They're going to have to send help. Like, that's not what they're doing. Right. And as a result, it's making it a lot harder for Luka to find people to pass the ball to. And I think that that's something that probably continues to translate. Even like Al Horford played and covered Luka. I don't know if I want to say that he covered him well or Luka just kind of missed shots, but either way, like the shots that Horford was giving him are shots that Luka wants to take. And, if this is another game or another, if the series kind of progresses here where there is a lot of switching, like you mentioned, Matt, Luka's going to wind up wanting to shoot the ball. Like he's going to say, like, I need to shoot the ball. I have to generate offense. I am the offense here. And I don't think that it's going to necessarily translate to him taking, getting other players involved, picking up those assists. Boston's done a really good job of, throughout the course of the entire season, limiting corner threes. That's something that Dallas has thrived on throughout the entire postseason. And given the fact that Boston limits those, I think that that's really a detractor for these Luka assists. So I like under 8.5. I'm a little surprised. Like, I understand why the books didn't adjust it down to, like a 7.5, just based on, trying to probably balance it a little bit. But at the same time, I think the 8.5 is too high. It's already picking up juice, like, as the day goes on. So like I'm grabbing it at -135. I still think the under is a good play here for Luka. Couple that with a lot of the pace information that you gave before. I think that there's just not going to be as many opportunities for him to set anybody else up, let alone convert.
You said Luka, I am the offense. Would you say he is the system? Would you say he's also?
I think we
much
could go
like
there.
Much like the player that he is most similar to, despite what Mavs fans try and tell me. Okay, so I have a concern. It's a small concern, and I don't think this is a reason not to play it, because Joe's very right about this, and I get too in the weeds on matchup stuff, and the overall numbers can play out. Here's my concern. So in game 1, I had someone with access to Second Spectrum look this up for me. I asked, how many possessions did the Mavericks run double screen action for the primary initiation on ball? Okay, so all that is just like, they did this. They murdered the Wolves with this. This was the big adjustment from Jason Kidd, is that he went to double screen action. They did it a little bit versus the Thunder, but they did it a lot versus the Wolves. And the Wolves run a different system. But it is notable here, the Celtics don't want to switch Kristaps Porzingis onto Luka. That's the one that they'll try and avoid. They actually play a high drop in those pick and roll situations to try and contain. What you can do is you run double screen, and now they have to navigate, like, all three guys, ball handler and both screener defender, have to navigate all of those switches clean without giving up the one that they want. And so that causes a lot of problems, especially because it gives the screener so many options, because the second screener can set a hard screen or he can slip. The first screener can set a flare for a pick and pop, or he can slip. The first screener can screen the second screener if it's PJ Washington and he flares for a 3. Like, those mechanisms are that's how you fuck up a switch screen scheme. And they didn't do that at all in game 1. And that is a very purposeful, as much as, like, I don't like to, if Jason Kidd doesn't do this in game 1, I like to think that it's like, look, for whatever reason, he doesn't think it'll work. But there is a possibility, given that Jason Kidd has been in about 1 million playoff series, that he was keeping some bullets in the chamber, that he wasn't going to fire all the adjustments, because a lot of coaches believe that you can't just go out there. And now I disagree with the sentiment, because my belief is, like, if you go up, much like in the Wolves series, if you go up 2-0 on the road, it's over. Like, we're done. It doesn't matter what, like, you can run out of adjustments. You only have to win 2 more games with 3 at home. But for whatever reason, they didn't do that. And so Luka's going to be able to generate more assists from those type of schemes in general, because of, I think, the confidence that the Celtics had in that. Now, the counter to this is, 1, the pace. And then 2, like, look, Boston can still contest this. If you want proof of that, like, here's a good one. How about Derek Lively slips to the basket off of being the first screener in these possessions? Oh no, we've got Derek Lively rolling towards the basket. It's going to be a lob. Jaylen Brown proved last night that all of these Celtics can defend the rim. Like, the Mavericks defend the rim by standing there. That's how they defend the rim. The Celtics defend the rim by making actual rotations. And so, like, they're able to contest those types of things. I still think there's value on Joe's bet. I do say I am a little bit concerned that the Mavericks were extremely vanilla with the offense. And if you add anything in, that's how you're going to start forcing help, which then provides more of those corner threes. But that might be secondary action where it's like Luka's kicking to either Derrick Jones Jr. or Lively or whoever, and they kick to the corner, and then you still get the under because Luka will have made the play without getting the credit for the assist, Joe.
Yeah, and my thing is, it's kind of like what you're getting at. It's like, how many times are they going to run this? Like, even if they run it and it works well, it's like, are they going to continue to spam it? Is Boston going to adjust, like, in the middle of the game? Like, who knows? So it's like, I don't think that he's going to have one assist again, because I think that would be crazy, right? But at the same time, I don't think that he's getting to 9. I don't think that he's getting to 10. So, like, based on what we saw in game 1, to me, like, I feel pretty comfortable with that, especially because some of the other things you said, like Boston is such a good rotation team. They are able to contest shots at the rim, and they are able to really get under your skin a little bit. And like you said, Luka, he's not a player. Like, I don't think he's like a stat counter. He's not like a bean counter in that type of way where he's like, I need to get this because I need to get a triple double, right? Like, or I need to do this. Maybe a little bit. I think everybody is like a little bit, but I don't think in like this play, like in the finals, that's like where he's going, you know? So that's a little bit of what I'm thinking about. I know like there was a little bit like in that one stretch during the season where he was cooking, but at the same time, under 8.5 to me still feels like a good angle to back or to bet against.
I'm putting it into I'm putting it in the parlay. I like this enough to put it in the parlay.
We're up.
Brian, do you want to veto, or are you okay to include it in the parlay?
No, it's fine. It's
okay.
I mean, I do have a 3-point stuff that I like, but I don't think it means Luka's going to get over 8.5 assists either.
Okay.
Yeah.
You and I are in lockstep, but we're just on different approaches to PJ Washington. Tell me why you want PJ Washington over 1.5 threes.
Well, it helps that he's made 2 or more in 11 of his last 13, so feel good about that. I do think that a big emphasis, and I'm keep going back to it, for game 2 has to be to create and generate looks from the perimeter for Dallas. Like, it's just something they have to do. I understand Boston's a great defense, and they're going to, run them off the line and sort of bait them into driving, which is what was working in game 1, and forcing them to take contested shots on the interior. But Dallas is going to have to figure out ways to generate looks from the 3-point line. So some of their players in general, I feel like, all right, now you guys have to start shooting threes. PJ Washington was shooting threes, just didn't make any last game, but he was 0 for 3. Even 3 is a little bit low on the attempts relative to where he's been. His 3 attempts from 3 were the lowest that he's had basically in the entire playoffs outside of another game where he's at 3. So he's somebody who's actually been getting them up in the postseason. And I think if they're going to generate these looks, he's probably the main guy I would look at outside of obviously the 2-star players being Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving to benefit from those looks if they can generate them. There's going to be, Maxi Kleber, Derrick Jones Jr. Like, you would think that they're going to get them involved in the offense too. Maybe we get a cameo from Tim Hardaway Jr., but PJ Washington, based on body of work in the postseason, is the one that I probably have the most confidence in. And it's only 1.5. I feel like I'm very comfortable with that number. The bookmakers can't put that at 2.5 because if you look at the last bunch of overs, it's all 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. And that's on 5 attempts, 6 attempts, 8 attempts, 7 attempts. So I feel good about PJ Washington having whatever measure of a bounce back game from 3 is for him.
There were 2 possessions where PJ had absolutely wide open, unbelievable, and like quality rhythm threes that he just clanked.
Yeah.
Now PJ's not a great shooter, which is what I've been commenting on all playoffs. Is like when he was shooting 47% versus the Thunder, I was like, this is something that OKC just can't. There's nothing they can do about this. But he's going to get enough of these looks, I think, especially because some of the cross matches that they're doing are interesting here, where if Tatum's going to take the center, which he did, like I talked about that all week and was like, I don't know, I'm worried about the rebounds. And then Tatum just absolutely fucking bodied Derek Lively the fuck out the way and was like, kid, no, my basketball. So great call by Jim and Joe and Brandon on the at least start for Tatum to have a double-double every game. Good start. But the other side of that is if Tatum's guarding the center, guess what? Porzingis in his minutes is guarding PJ Washington. And again, if they're not going to switch with KP onto PJ, right, or onto Luka or Kyrie when they run that 1-4 pick and roll, because they want to put KP in that action,
Right.
then they're going to put two to try and contain that ball handler, which means PJ's open, and he just missed them. Like, there were good looks, and some were like they had closeouts, like Derek White's. Again, the Celtics are really tough because a lot of teams can guard the perimeter and guard the interior, but they can't close out. A lot of teams can close out and guard the perimeter, but they can't defend inside. The Celtics are awesome because they can do all three. They're good at rotating inside to contest at the rim. They're really good at containing on ball with Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown. And they have got their guys are all willing to make hard closeouts and do the hard work. They are really good at those closeouts. If you want a good comparison, go watch Luka Doncic try and fucking contest any closeout last night for the exact opposite of that, because oh my God, it was pathetic how lazy they were. But I throw a lot of shade here. I just like, it stands out on film. When Luka has an awesome game, I will promise I will talk about it. It really stands out on film how much they cooked him in that game. But PJ's going to be open on those possessions. And so I'm with Bryan, but I want the points because I think that there's a chance Boston's still going to be like, let's close out really hard and not give up those threes, because we keep those threes down, we're going to win with math. PJ will pump fake drive and then score. And they do run enough rolls with him that he's going to be able to get some points inside. I feel pretty confident on both of these, quite honestly. I don't mind parlaying these together at PJ over 1.5 threes and PJ over 11.5 points. Sure. Like, to me, that's like a very good parlay because obviously he gets one, he gets the other. If the book will allow you to do so, you should look into those as well. But I will take the points and he will take the over 1.5 threes. I will bet them both individually. I think they're both really good plays. Joe, Tatum, rebounds, and assists. Talk to me.
Yeah, so I mean, Tatum just was excellent again, like on the rebounding. I'm not going to go back into that again. He had 11 rebounds, another great rebounding performance from him. He's averaging over 10 rebounds per game in the playoffs. I like adding the assists here because Tatum, like not Luka, was the guy who went crazy on potential assists, actually. Tatum had 14 potential assists, but only the Celtics only converted on 5 of them. So he only had 5 assists in this game. I'm getting part of why I like the combo prop, honestly, is that his assist lines at 5.5, rebounds lines at 9.5, and I'm able to get the combination. I feel like I'm getting a little bit of a discount, but at the same time, I'm also getting some upside here, and I like that's part of what I like adding these two together for. I think the floor for Tatum is actually very solid on the assists. He's been very consistent throughout the course of the playoffs, at least getting like 4, if not 5 assists per game. When I'm looking at the rebounds and assist prop, he's been crushing it throughout the course of the playoffs. The 14.5 he's hit in 12 of 15 games throughout the playoffs. He just had 16 in game 1. He's averaging 16.3. So that's 80% hit rate on 14.5. Given the fact that we have upside in the rebounding department, but also like there's this upside in the assists. You know, if they make a couple of those shots, Tatum was grabbing these rebounds and kicking out like immediately to the perimeter. And Derek White, had a good game shooting the basketball. Really all of Boston shot pretty well from 3-point range, but there were still opportunities where they just weren't coming off the Tatum assist. They were coming off of, Drew Holiday had a pretty good assist game as well, and Derek White somehow had 5 assists on 2 potentials. So I don't even know how you get that right. But I like the floor for both of these categories for Tatum. And I also like the potential ceiling in both rebounds and assists. So I'm comfortable combining them into the 14.5 RA.
I think the only concern on the assist side, I like the rebounds. The only concern on the assist side is like, you might just get this, like you won't get the whole thing on rebounds, but you might get most of them. Like you might get 12 boards and 3 assists and then you're home. But my only concern is if you're Dallas, you probably have to reassess your coverage from game 1 and be like,
they have to, yeah.
Maybe we don't need to just shut down Jason Tatum as the head of the snake. Maybe we don't need to put the ant rules on Jason Tatum. Tatum made some his passing. He had some sick ones that didn't convert.
Yeah, exactly.
He had a whip pass over 3 Mavericks that they never saw coming, and it was fast, but not so fast that White couldn't catch it. It was a little to the right, but still enough for him to get into a shooting motion. Like, it was chef's kiss.
I'll
So
put it
like
this way:
but
he's had five or more assists in 12 of 15 games. So, and
yeah,
then the misses are he has 2 at 3 against Miami, who we know like kind of limits that. Like that's
yeah.
just not like a series that he's going to get him in. And other than that, the lowest he had 1 game at 4 against Indiana. So like,
Yeah.
if you like, to me, I was like, if I like the rebounds at like 9.5 and I'm pretty comfortable there, like grabbing the combo prop and saying like, well, like his floor has basically been 5. Like he's been awesome. So it's like that's kind of why I like it. But I do agree with you. Like some of those chances should probably come down because like the coverage was ridiculous. Like that made I was like, what are we doing here? Like so it just was everybody collapsed on him. But at the same time, he gets those ones where he gets the board, kicks it out, and you can't really game plan for that in the same way.
Yeah, the Miami stuff, by the way, because Maria Marino was asking me about this when we were doing Action Island yesterday. She was like, why did Drew Holiday not like kind of struggle versus Miami, both on points and assists? And I said, because it's because of zone. It's Miami's zone was able to slow that because that's what it's geared to do. But that's not what Dallas doesn't run zone. They can't really run it effectively. Maybe they can in game 2 and I'm wrong, but there's been no evidence that they can effectively run zone. Okay, back to Bryan. I'm with you on this one as well. I'm going to bet this. Kleber over 0.5 threes. What do you think?
Yeah, another one who I think will be a beneficiary of what I think will be an uptick in the 3-pointers. Like you could tell, like this is sort of what I'm looking at. I'm looking at Dallas.
Well, hang on. Let me read this. Let me go ahead and read behind the curtain here for the audience listening.
Go ahead.
This is Bryan is hoping to God the Celtics don't just sweep this fucking team, and the only way that happens is if they actually shoot some threes. Otherwise, the Celtics team he loathes is going to roll to a championship. And that is unfortunate. So Bryan is here looking like the LeBron meme with JR being like, shoot the threes. That's a lot of what this is. But go ahead.
The Celtics play basketball like kids play 2K, where it's just like they just it's just shooting threes, shooting threes. Like this is how we've been playing NBA Live in 2K since the 2000s. And this is what's happening in all of our sports. Is the way we played video games when we were children. Now everything is offense because it's our fault. That's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. We can do 10 minutes on this or even an hour, but we don't have time. Maxi Kleber, 3-pointers. I'm not even kidding. I legitimately think that. Maxi Kleber, 3-pointers. I don't know why he's barely shooting at all. He shot 1 shot last game, and it wasn't a 3, despite playing 19 minutes. But I do think that, and we talked about this before we started, what's going to happen to Derrick Jones Jr.'s role, because he's supposed to be, quote unquote, one of Dallas's defensive stoppers, and he is a very good defender. But it's like, where are you going to slot him if he can't quite guard either of the Jays and he struggles with the guards? I don't think that's something that's going to sustain itself like the entire series. He'll probably figure it out and he'll have a good game or bounce back game to some degree in game 2. But with Maxi Kleber, I think that could open up some minutes for him, because I feel like they kind of need him more in this series than even I thought, because he's one of the only guys on the Mavericks who can shoot from the perimeter and could also guard at a reasonable level, can also switch. Like, we've seen him play small ball 5. That's something that they may have to go to if Derek Lively is going to look like a rookie, right? And ultimately, Kleber is going to be playing a stretch big role in this offense. So I just like him to hit 1 3, just one, Maxi, just one. And it was plus odds. It was plus 100 out there on the market. So I do think that, he's going to get his attempts. He only had a couple in recent games against Minnesota when he played the last 2 games of that series, but I think Kleber can get this for us.
So second half, Kleber played 8 minutes. He was a -4. Lively played 10. He was -3. Gafford only played 4 minutes and 36 seconds. So I'm with you on this. I think that as much as now, I'm a little reticent on the minute side of this. I still think like 0.5 threes, like he just should get one somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm a little reticent because I've been like, oh no, they can't play Gafford, and Kid's been like, watch me. He's just like doubled down and been able to make it work. And the other thing that they've been able to do, and I do wonder if he's going to try this, is they've actually gone to Kleber with one of the centers, Gafford or Lively, and he really likes those big lineups. I actually would not be surprised if we see PJ at 3, Kleber with Lively, and you say like that's 3 bigs. How are you gonna? But Kleber and Washington are both stretch, so you're not losing spacing, and Kleber and Washington are 2 of the better switch bigs. So you have Lively basically in there for rim protection, and he's a little bit better on the perimeter. He should be better than he was in game like first half, especially. Derek Lively was like, oh shit, especially with Kristaps.
Yeah.
But second half, he was much better. Kristaps' numbers versus Lively are actually not terrible, even though like the first possession, KP just punked him and dunked on him. Yeah. There'll be a little bit more of an adjustment there, but I agree. I thought this was going to be a Kleber series from the start. The fact that he's not getting up threes, I think, is a little concerning. I've done a lot of film work this morning, but I haven't been able to find anything that the Celtics did to deny that. I'm not trying as much as it will seem like I am, because I've been a Luka critic, to just like pile on him. But it's just like, look, if you really want to know, it's like, I don't think he was looking for these opportunities. I think Luka Doncic got into the same mindset that Kevin Durant did versus the Rockets in 2018. If you're going to give me this switch, I'm gonna cook you, because you can't guard me with these guys. And the problem is like, yeah, you kind of can, because then the rest of the offense isn't doing anything. Like, you can live with it. It's fine. And he's gonna move the ball, I think, a little bit more. Joe, do we hit all your props, or do we have any left?
Porzingis over 3.5 first quarter.
Porzingis over 3.5 first quarter. Go ahead.
So the reason I like this, look, like he came off the bench in game 1. We bet this. We bet the 7+ at +350. We bet 10+ at 12-1 as well. These all hit, and I think that a little bit of it is, like shooting variance, whatever. He was 4 for 5 from the field, and like, look, I don't necessarily expect him to score double digits again in the first quarter, but that was the second game in Porzingis' career that he came off the bench. Second game in his career. I was like, when they announced the lineups, I was stunned, right? It still didn't matter. He still played 7 minutes in the first quarter. It was an early rotation. He came in, and we'll see if he comes off the bench again or if he starts, but this season, he's hitting over 3.5 first quarter points in 81% of games. He's averaging 7 points per game in the first quarter, and his scoring declines like as the game progresses, in each quarter. So I like attacking him early. I still think it's a good matchup. I think that, like, to your point, Matt, the kid still wants to play Gafford. Gafford probably still starts then. And, maybe we see those minutes. I think he was still good against Lively, even when those minutes kind of happened. I think that there's probably a little bit of room for regression here, but seeing the 3.5 again, I was like, I want to grab this. Boston just runs too many actions for Porzingis to get him open, to get the shots going early in the game, where it's like, even if they do tighten up some of the coverage on him, I think that there's still plenty of opportunity for him to make some threes, get some open looks in the post, get some like looks cutting to the basket. So I like him to go over the 3.5 first quarter points. It's a little bit too light of a line, and he's scored now 11 and 13 points in 2 first quarters against the Dallas Mavericks this season.
This feels like very much the kind of thing where I talk myself out of something based off of like expected matchups without considering the line. Where it's like, it's Kristaps Porzingis to score 4 points in a quarter.
Yeah,
that's it.
It's just too low.
It's just
way too low.
It's 2 jumpers. It's a dunk and a jumper. It's a 3 and a free throw.
Yeah,
that's it.
It's just too low. It's too low.
It's just too low. I agree. So I'm gonna bet this as well. The couple of things that do cause the concern for me, I do think that Dallas is going to deny the switch a little bit more and try and play a little bit of a different coverage.
Yeah.
To keep him out of having size mismatches, but they're also going to live with a lot of the shots that he hit. Like, he had one that was like a pivot sideways free throw line post up over Derek Jones, where it was just like that. You got to live with that. And then he cooled off in the second half in particular. So the other thing I am a little bit concerned with is he doesn't play for a month and for 2 months. He comes back, he looks awesome, and now we're 48 hours, or not 48, we're 72 hours later, he's got to play again, right? Yeah. So he doesn't get 4 months off in between games. What does that look like? At the same time, it's, again,
4 points.
4 points.
Yeah. I do think that some of those should probably dry up, like those like like some of those post up shots from like long too, like those are the ones that I'm concerned about, at least for the upside. But I still don't hate like playing like 0.1 of a unit on those. Like if you're already betting like to win one on the over 3.5, it's just too low of a line. And like, given what he can do and like how fast he can score, to me, like this is just a great opportunity to keep buying low on a guy where I think that they can't really set the line properly, because he's like, we saw it. He is the first guy in a blowout to go to the bench. Like he's not going to play. Like the minutes limit, I get it. Like they're like, oh, he's got no restrictions. The restriction is if we're up big, or probably if we're down big, he's coming out of the game. Like we're not going to push him. So like he only played 21 minutes, but a lot of that was in the back half.
Yeah.
So I like attacking him early, where, you know, like his full game prop is 15.5 and we're getting 3.5 in the first quarter. It's just, I don't know. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me.
Unbalanced.
Yeah.
Brian, I'm a little surprised you didn't get in on a Kyrie over. I'm a little surprised that you didn't want to bet Kyrie in a bounce back spot.
I'm still probably gonna take the assists because I was on that for the series anyway. For me, it's like he's being guarded by Drew Holiday and Derek White. Like, you know, I don't think he's gonna shoot 6 of 19 again. And I think at some point, yes, great offense can be great defense, but
He's also. I'll say this: I don't love where his head's at. For him going out there post game and being like, I thought it'd be a little bit louder. Honestly, I'm like,
he's too happy. He's too happy.
Don't know.
Like he's too.
I mean, hey, I felt this way about the Mavericks when like one of their pregame comments was Luka being like, "We deserve this," and I was like, "Deserve what?" I was like, "You haven't done anything yet."
I don't know.
And that's, like, you've won the conference, and that you deserve credit for that. Like, I do think that there's winning. Like, it's not like the only people say this that like he's gonna win something, and I'm like, he's been like Jason Tatum. Well, he needs to win something. He's been to 5 conference finals. He's won a last series. He's got his ass.
I'm not saying Kyrie Irving needs to go back to doing what he was doing before, but I do think like I want to see more of an edge here, because I feel like, you know, he's joking around with the official who called the travel at him at one point.
Yeah, like Luka was doing this too, like laugh, like they both were just like, oh, this is so fun, and I'm like, you're on the road in game 1. What are you doing? I'm not asking you to be KG, just like tighten up a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's do a same game parlay here for our picks. Jason Tatum, we can't do assists and rebounds, but we can do rebounds. Jason Tatum rebounds over 9.5.
Love it.
PJ Washington over 1.5 threes, the under 214.5, and Luka under 8.5 assists. That gets us to plus 875.
Wow.
Do we want to kick one off to increase our probability here, Joe? Or do we want to keep it with the 875?
I kind of like all of them, because I think that the one that I would probably be like most likely to pull might be like the Tatum boards, just because like it's a little bit deviating from like the way my cap was. But at the same time, we loved him to get a double in every game. Like we loved him to average 10 rebounds per game, and he's still hitting this in 80% of the game. So I'm pretty comfortable there, and I think they all kind of, aside from the PJ Washington threes, but I think like they all kind of correlate to an under. You know, it's like,
yeah, it's correlate. Yeah,
so
I was worried about that. Like PJ's the one non-correlative,
but I don't hate it though.
Tatum's getting.
I don't hate it, because I think that maybe that messes up
Yeah.
like, you know, some of the numbers a little bit. And like Bryan said, like PJ's gonna hit. The line's just low. Like the line's low for him.
Yeah. I do kind of like it because it is like it's 3 correlative and then 1 counter correlative.
Exactly. Yeah.
And like, you know, you get extra value on that 875. So yeah, fired up. The buckets same game parlay at BetMGM. Tatum over 9.5 rebounds. PJ over 1.5 threes. The under 214.5 and Luka under 8.5 assists. That's going to do it for buckets. Thanks for joining us. Have yourselves a great weekend. Enjoy game 2 on Sunday night. We'll be with you for buckets live starting in the 4th quarter. Then on Monday, we'll be back with you for best bets for game 3. I'll be in Dallas getting you coverage all throughout the week. Make sure to check out Action Island on Sunday as well. My thanks to David Payne, our producer, as well as Hutton Jackson, the video crew, getting us up on youtube.com/the Action Network. My thanks to Matt Mitchell for always reminding me how overly long our episodes are. Have yourselves a great weekend. Till we talk again. Let's get buckets.